Hello, everyone. A wild sheep chase. I'm sitting down finally to make a video about this novel, Wild Sheep Chase by Haruki Murakami, 1982, date of publication, translated to English by Alfred Birnbaum. This novel is part of a series of series of books that are called the Rat series. The Rat because one of the characters has a nickname, the Rat, the narrator's close friend. This series of books begin with Hear the Wind Sing, a Pinball, 1973, a Wild Sheep Chase, and the fourth and last final part in the series is called Dance, Dance, Dance. Between A Wild Sheep Chase and Dance, 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 there's a period of about 6 years. And in those 6 years, Murakami writes and publishes 3 works. One of them is called Hard-Boiled Wonderland, and the End of the World. The Strange Library, which I've already talked about, and The Norwegian Wood. Those 3 come in the span of time between A Wild Sheep Chase and the fourth and final book in the Rat series. All right, those are just some not necessarily relevant to this video facts about Murakami bibliography. Okay, A Wild Sheep Chase. Let's talk a little bit about the story. The story of this novel begins with a separation. The narrator and his wife are getting a divorce. In fact, they've already gone through the divorce, and there's her decision. She has made the decision to move out. Not only move out, but she takes away all her signs. She really insists on removing all of her signs of having lived there. And our character realizes that she's removing all of the clues that he could use to remember her. He doesn't have access to any of those memory clues anymore. This is already one of the major themes, the theme of like removal, when you deprive an environment from something, or when you deprive an organism, you deprive a person of a function or a relationship, a connection to an environment. When an environment loses one of its function, when you can no longer go into an environment to feel connected to, even in your memory, at least to feel that sense of connection to somebody else who used to be your partner, life partner. So this separation is a theme. Power is also a major theme. Power. If you have read this book, you know that the wild sheep is all about, at least on the surface, it is all about power. The search for the wild sheep. Let's not get into that. I don't want to spoil the basic skeleton of the story. Just want to point out some of the major elements in the beginning and around the narrative, the structure of the narrative. Okay, so our main protagonist or central character, or the person who's narrating the story, is thinking about his failed marriage, he's thinking about relationships in general. And then he remembers something. He remembers having seen something in a museum sometime in the past. What has he seen? He has seen in a museum, in a natural history museum, a whale penis. A whale penis, a part of a whale body, and this body part is strangely out of place. It is detached and it is put on display. It is serving a function that is not its original function. It wasn't meant to be this thing on display. It belonged to a body, and that body also belonged to the ocean. So this again evokes the idea of detachment, loss of function when you're out of place, and human life being also governed by abstraction, compartmentalization, selective functioning, which is more akin to, we can say it is more like a whale penis at a museum on display, more like that than the natural life of a whale, or the natural life of an animal in its natural environment. Then we hear about the narrator's childhood friend. The narrator's childhood friend. It's not that hard to say. I don't know why I have a hard time pronouncing words. So the childhood friend who is referred to as the rat. It's not an actual rat. Then his nickname is the rat. He's in contact regularly, or not, maybe not regularly, but every once in a while he's in contact. He writes letters to our narrator, but their communications runs only in one direction, only one way. The rat writes to him, but he's not revealing his address. He's obsessed with freedom. He's obsessed with being free, being detached, being on his own, continuing to move, being able to move, keeping his ability to move, not getting pinned down in any one city, in any one place, in any one relationship. So the rat keeps moving north, keeps moving towards the periphery of Japan. And as I said in his letters, he insists on not giving the narrator's address. In one of his letters, the rat sends our narrator a photograph of, in that photograph, we see, or they see, a herd of sheep. And he asks our narrator to use this photograph in some public way, in some public manner. By the way, our narrator works in a marketing, advertising, copywriting company. Originally, at first, it was a translation-based company. They provided translation services. This started in Pinball in 1973. Continues, the company has become more versatile. And so this photo, like any other photo, could be used in an advertising, in some kind of advertising purposes. Again, something is being used, something being given a function, this being put on display for some purpose other than its original purpose. The photograph ends up being published, and it gets the attention of some other people, and that's how the main part of the story begins. Around the same time that he gets the sheep photo, our central character also comes across another photo. This one is the photo of an ear model, the ear of an ear model, photo of an ear, and he becomes fascinated with this ear of a female person, and wants to find her, reaches out to the modeling agency, invites the model for dinner, and a kind of a romance begins between them. Romance is, I'm using this word, maybe this word is too strong for what they end up having. They start a casual relationship, maybe not very romantic. And the relationship is not lively enough. It is not exciting enough. It is not full of life. And because of that, this relationship doesn't really give a force to the story to move in any direction. When a relationship is strong, when there's interest between two characters, when the two characters have interest in each other, or even when one of them is interested in the other, a kind of narrative force is generated and tension is developed, and then we move with that tension. The story moves according to that tension in some kind of direction. Maybe a problem is created, or a relationship starts to develop. But this relationship is not really like that. It's a relationship between two people who have they feel like they have figured life out. They are kind of cynical, kind of nihilistic. They have found their efficient ways of living, making a living, dealing with other people, and having relationships like casual sexual relationships. Murakami identifies an approach to sex that involves the whole person and calls it sex as therapy. So therapy doesn't mean like professional therapy. So back to the discussion of sex. In its original form, there is a totality to sex, to sexual relationship. There's a totality. There's a totality of how a person gets involved in a sexual relationship. And it is that totality, that wholeness, that can heal the people involved, that can create that therapeutic effect. This form of sex can, over time, over repetition, and under the practical pressures of life, it can turn into something else. It can turn into sex as pastime, or sex as problem solving, a way of practically dealing with your biological needs. This transformation involves a loss of meaning. So some of the meaning gets lost in that process, and some of the original function is also lost. Because we go from something that is more whole, relatively speaking, has a totality to it, and then we get narrow. We narrow it down. We narrow down the function, focus it narrowly, and make it more efficient and more specific. This theme shows up also in the descriptions of the life of this girl, the ear model girl. We learned that early on. We learned that she has 3 different occupations. She's a call girl. She is also a model, ear model, and she's also a proofreader at a publishing company, editor, proofreader. And she has divided herself in this way into these separate parts, separate occupations. And the occupations are kept separate so they don't influence each other. Despite its separation from the girl's body, the ear has this mysterious quality from the perspective of our narrator. We read at some point, the narrator says, "I have no firm grasp on whether your ears appeal to me directly or whether something else in you appeals to me through your ears." Related to this, there's a lovely essay written by Andre Aciman that appears in that collection of essays called Homo Irrealis. And this essay by Aciman is about Eric Romer's film titled Claire's Knee. So the knee as one body part acquiring this magical quality, which is not really just about the ear, it's about the person, but it gets anchored into that body part. So the ear is kind of similar to Claire's knee. Anyways, back to the wild sheep chase. Meanwhile, there's this relationship. Meanwhile, the sheep photograph catches the attention of another character, a businessman, a business tycoon, and his associates. And they become, because of their interest in the wild sheep, they become the primary engine of the narrative. They come in and they provide the force that really creates a story in the novel. This is the first time moving from Hear the Wind Sing, Pinball, 1973. This is the 3rd official work by Murakami. This is the first time that he's actually telling a story, as opposed to having this lyrical, observational style. So there's a story here, but the story is not driven by the narrator's own interests. Our narrator is forced into action, into movement. He has to move. If you read the novel, if you have read the novel, you will know what I mean. He's pressured by an external force to go on this journey. Or at least we want to believe, or he wants to believe, that it is an external force. He doesn't want to identify or be responsible for the things that he's doing. If you go a little bit deeper into the core of the the novel. Murakami, I can't help but think that Murakami really tries in this and other works, at least in the early works that I'm more familiar with. I'm more familiar with the early his early 7 works and some of his later short stories. He really tries to construct a narrator who is a pure observer, doesn't care, doesn't want anything, doesn't want to do anything. He just observes, and he pretends to be very objective in his observation. The only exception, and a very important exception here, is the end of the novel, Hear the Wind Sing, where we find our narrator quite strangely, and to me, quite puzzling, in a puzzling way. He gets really angry. He's angry that, I don't know why. I think maybe because he's been played. But what that anger is about, and why all of a sudden at the end of the story, all these emotions get released, they all come to the surface. That's a puzzle. That's maybe one of the big puzzles of this novel. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. The reason why I have a problem with this novel and with Murakami in general is because I think Murakami is observing a world observing a world with lots of problems. But he and his narrators participate in that world, and they don't, not only do they not do anything to rebel, to resist that world, they become complicit in it. And just that, it is that style, that attitude that to me, it sounds a little bit opportunistic. That, okay, I'm just going to make the best of it. The world is going to hell or something. The world is going in a bad direction. I'm just going to enjoy it. And not even enjoy it. Have just some passing, narrow, safe, hedonistic experiences until the ride is over. I think my biggest problem with Murakami is with that. But yeah, it is definitely a very thought-provoking novel. I might read it later on. If you have read it, I'm curious to hear what you think. My interactions with Murakami fans and Murakami readers on YouTube has been one of the best. I have the most positive impression among all the authors that I've so far, a few authors that I've discussed. People who read Murakami, somehow, for some reason, and I don't know why, they are kind, they are very positive and very earnest, genuine. At least in my experience being on YouTube and talking about Murakami, to the limited extent that I have. So this is my way of saying thank you. I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to talk about Murakami in general, but I wanted to because of that, because of the positive experiences I've had with Murakami fans. So thank you for that reason. And I guess that's it. Check out my reading group. I host a reading group that meets on Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, thanks for listening, and till next time.